I'm actually seeing a lot of guys in their 20s. I had a guy who was
What?
27 and he had been treated for depression for like 6 months. And it turns out his testosterone was like 170. His
Mm,
testosterone should have been like 8, 900, 1,000. It was in the
yeah.
toilet. We're seeing a lot of younger guys who are walking around tired, they're stressed, they're maybe anxious, they're depressed. And everyone just says, oh, they're busy. And hey, this is life. But turns out, no, actually, often they have extremely low testosterone levels.
Welcome back to another episode of the Doctors and Dollars podcast. I'm your host, Nate Crannell. Dr. David Hall is a board-certified urologist and certified wellness coach with over 10 years of experience. Specializing in men's health, he empowers busy professionals to prioritize fitness and wellness through personalized, evidence-based strategies. Dr. Hall combines medical expertise with wellness coaching to help clients achieve sustainable improvement in the physical and mental well-being, focusing on preventative care and practical solutions for a healthier, more fulfilling life. Welcome, Dr. Hall.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great summary. So I'm glad to be here.
What's going well today?
A lot, yeah. Doing some clinic and some surgery. As you mentioned, I'm a full-time urologist in addition to the other things. But yeah, it's Friday, so yeah, it's a good day. Excited to be on the show now.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Well,
Yeah.
I just, knowing a little bit about you, you have to be one of those guys that, like, if we were to look at your calendar, start to finish, just stacked full. It's got to be color coded with men's health things, wellness, a workout, dinner with the wife. You got to have just a full calendar.
Yeah, it's full. It's full. It takes a lot of planning and trying to be efficient. But yeah, it is very full. Absolutely.
How do you have the energy for all that?
That's the whole health and wellness thing, right? So all the things I talk about, it just fuels the energy, right? So you name it, there's a lot of strategies around that. But yeah, I have plenty of energy. That's not a problem. But it wasn't always that way. So
let's go back then. You weren't always that way. Tell me about that time in your life.
Yeah, so I think I mean, as I've gotten older and obviously got more experienced, I've realized a lot of the things that are beneficial beyond just quote unquote health is truly the wellness and optimizing like everything in your life, right? So one specific example would be sleep. I think nowadays a lot more people are talking about sleep, but when I was younger, I kind of had to forego sleep, especially as a resident med student. You had to study, you had to train, you had to take call, and I still do obviously call as a urologist, but I think optimizing sleep over time has been one of those things that's been super important, right? So ensuring you get 7 to 8, sometimes 9 hours of high quality sleep. Sleep hygiene, another big buzzword, right? Ensuring you prepare your body for sleep. That just ensures your next day is like full of energy or more than it otherwise would be if you were to cut out sleep. And so a lot of patients, a lot of clients of mine, one of the first things we identify when they're quote unquote tired, in addition to a lot of things like low testosterone and other issues, is just lack of sleep. They're just not getting enough sleep. And so that's just one of those, I guess, easy examples to chat about, but that's a big one.
Yeah, so when we think of the broad-based term of health and wellness, you would put sleep into that wellness category. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think I'm one of those guys that gets 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. But I'm also one of those guys that, like, before I go to sleep, I'm watching SportsCenter on TV, and I start to get a little drowsy. I'll shut off TV. I'll look at my phone for a little bit, and then I'll set my phone on the nightstand, roll over, go to sleep. While I'm getting 7 to 8 hours, talk about the quality of sleep and the importance behind that.
Yeah, so it's the whole sleep hygiene concept, right? And that's one thing that I used to be terrible about also. And what I used to do is I would check emails before bed, and I would get some, stressful email from a colleague or a business partner about a patient, and I'd get all amped up and worked up and concerned. And why was I doing that? It could wait. It wasn't an emergency. So why check that before bedtime? And you mentioned watching SportsCenter, right? You're going to be in more of a sympathetic state. You may be watching a game or highlights and scores, things that might either amp you up or negatively affect your mood. And just, it's not preparing your body for sleep, right? That's just not the ideal way to do it. And in addition to me checking email or you watching SportsCenter, there's the blue light, right? There's that it definitely changes some of the circadian rhythms that are important to prepare your body, prepare your mind for high quality sleep. And another thing that's often overlooked, and I really dial this in with clients and patients, is eating before bed, right? There's a lot of studies now that show foregoing not just fluids, right? I see a lot of patients in the urology space who drink a lot before bed and then they're getting up to go to the bathroom, but also eating. If you stop eating hours before bedtime, that's actually a really beneficial sleep hygiene practice. And there's some science to it. There's some research behind why that might be, but it's just one of those things that people don't really realize all the ways we can actually optimize our sleep just through changing some of our habits, SportsCenter, eating, that kind of thing.
What's the optimal time frame on eating between last meal to going to bed?
I mean, personally, I like to keep it at 2 to 3 hours. Okay. I think if you want to truncate that to 2 hours, you're probably good. 3 hours probably better. And it just, there's actually some interesting studies looking at that cutting off when you're eating before bed, that several hours, it really helps boost things like growth hormone, which at night is very restorative for your body. And so, that insulin spike, if you eat a big meal before bed, that blunts that growth hormone secretion at night, which is not a really good thing. And it kind of can mess with the quality of your sleep. And so that's kind of some of the science behind it. But I think 2 to 3 hours would be fine.
I definitely want to talk about meals with you. So we're gonna sidebar that for a second, because I know for you, like snacks for you are meals. I saw you a post you put on LinkedIn. There's like, here was my afternoon snack. I'm like, bro, that's a full 2-course meal right there.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's sidebar that. I do want to talk about that, but thinking about dieting, because you brought up a good point of a couple hours before sleep. What are your thoughts on kind of the intermittent fasting trend that's been going around? Because there you're setting aside a few hours before you sleep, but then even after you wake up, you're not breaking that fast for another 4 or 5 hours. Mm-hmm. What are some of the health benefits to that? But then in your eyes, what are some of the negative aspects that can come from that as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's I think conflicting data on what intermittent fasting actually does, right? So in a way, you're restricting the hours at which you're going to eat meals, right? So there's different ways to do that, different hours you're going to eat. Maybe you fast for 12, eat during a 12-hour window, or whatever it might be. Personally, I don't find it helpful long term. I don't think it's something that's sustainable indefinitely. I think it can mess with eating patterns. It can be, for some people, especially males who are trying to add lean mass, it can be tricky to add the required macronutrients and calories that they actually need if they're training and working out during a smaller window. So is it useful? Yeah. Do I think it's an end all? Everyone should do it indefinitely? I don't. I really don't think that. But some of the benefits, right? So one of the biggest is just insulin sensitivity, right? If you're restricting your calories, that's very helpful for your body to become more insulin sensitive. And for example, I have a client who's trying to lose weight. Obviously, insulin sensitivity is huge. And then if you put intermittent fasting or some sort of time restriction on that, in the end, they're actually going to just be eating less too, right? So it's easier to decrease the number of calories you're taking in, which is the whole point. If they're trying to lose weight, they've got to be in a caloric deficit. So if we have them on some sort of time restricted eating, that's easier to do. Well, I think personally what I like to do is I kind of cycle through intermittent fasting concepts, but I'm not like an intermittent faster. So one of the times I really like to use it is on vacation or travel. And so, you're kind of busy anyway if you're traveling. It's kind of hard to plan your meals if you normally do that. It's much different on vacation. So especially if you're trying to lose weight or cut, I guess you could call it, doing an intermittent fasting concept on vacations, actually like just something I usually do. It's pretty helpful. But you might want to edit that one, huh? Anyway, maybe keep it in there. That's kind of funny.
There you go.
And then, I think another way I do it is like, so for example, the way I cycle my macros and have clients sometimes cycle macros is on non-lifting days. You can do fasted cardio in the morning. You can delay breakfast, and you're building just kind of some increased insulin sensitivity, and increasing your metabolism, so you can hopefully burn more of the fat, get leaner. But again, I don't recommend you necessarily have to do that every day, even if that makes sense. So it can be a real intermittent aspect to intermittent fasting. I think a lot of people just they do it every day, all day for indefinite periods, and they can get into trouble, I think.
Because I tried it a few years ago, and I did lose a little weight, but then obviously you switch back to your normal eating habits, and you can gain it right back. But
exactly,
I did the 16-8, right? Whereas I ate between noon and 8, and then from thereafter I didn't. There's other people that kind of do it the reverse way, where it's like they'll eat a big breakfast and then they slowly taper the size of their meals off until the evening. So it's not necessarily intermittent fasting, but it's just like the actual intake. There's a deficit of intake over time throughout the day.
Correct.
What does that do during sleep then? Because obviously you know way more about the sleep than I do, but like having less in your stomach while you sleep, it's kind of the opposite. You said like you eat a bunch of food 2 hours before you go to sleep and then have that window, but like what are the benefits of not having a lot in your stomach as you sleep?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on your goals. Like a lot of these types of conversations, it depends on
weight loss.
Everyone has different goals. So yeah, if it's weight loss, I mean, it can be helpful. Yeah, I mean, so if you have a lighter dinner, let's say it's 3-4 hours before bed, that's theoretically even better than eating a huge meal 3 or 4 hours before bed, right? So if you're stacking your calories towards the end of the day, that might not be ideal. And so, yeah, limiting those in the evening can be helpful. Again, a lot of it is just for insulin sensitivity and fat burning, so to speak, and I guess priming yourself for a high quality, sleep night where you're not having to, process all this food that you took in several hours before bed. It requires a lot of energy, and it can detract from what sleep is really supposed to be, which is restorative. So yeah, I would say personally, I do tend to do that. I do have a large breakfast. I eat a lot of my carbs, a lot of my food around my training, which is usually middle of the day. And then I definitely taper my food kind of late afternoon and the evening. So personally, that's what I tend to do. I think for certain clients, certain people, it can be difficult depending on your schedule, depending on your daily routine, right? So if someone tends to be up more in the evening and they're eating dinner at 5 or 6 and they've got hours and hours and hours to go and they're at home looking at all the snacks and they've got all this food noise, that might not be ideal for them, right? They might need to have a big dinner so they're not snacking all night. So again, it kind of has to be customized, but those are some generic thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, so we've talked about the timing of sleep. We've talked about the timing of meals and different ways that people can do it. Let's talk about the timing of exercise and where it could benefit or deter from whatever your goals are, whether it is weight loss, whether it's building lean muscle. I know that there's obviously several variables that go into either one of those, but like, where is the timing of your exercise in comparison to your eating? When is that most optimal? I'm a get up and I work out at 7 a.m. And then just kind of, I eat a big breakfast, but then like lunch, I don't really have much. Dinner's not as big as breakfast was. But I'm just trying to slim down. Where is working out most optimal in comparison to however you are eating?
So me personally, I tend to eat a very large breakfast. It's got all the macros, fats, carbs, protein, lots of protein. And then what I typically do, and that's when I get up, shortly after 6:30, 7, whatever. And then I'll eat a mid-morning, late morning, not a snack, it's a meal. And that's almost like my pre-workout meal because I usually work out around lunchtime, lunch break. I just go to the gym rather than sit in my office. And so for that, it'll be, again, high protein, not really much fat, a lot more carbs than usual because that's going to fuel my workout, which is usually a lot of lifting, training, that kind of thing. And I do that like at least an hour to hour and a half before I train. If the schedule didn't quite work out, sometimes it's like 45 minutes. And I can almost tell a difference. If it's too soon, your body's still processing all the food you ate. and you can kind of drag in your workout. What I've also noticed is that everyone's different. So sometimes this is trial and error, right? Some people might need 2 hours. Some people might be fine like 30 minutes. Everyone's different. So I think when I have a client who's trying to figure this out, it is a trial and error concept at times. So there's not really a hard and fast rule. You have to eat an hour before you train. You got to play around with it and see how your body feels, right? What gives you the best workouts? It's going to likely be sometime an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours before is kind of ideal if you're training hard. And after workouts, personally, I drink a lot of protein shakes after my workouts, more carbs, usually fruit or simple sugars to kind of replenish the glycogen stores that I used up during the workout. And then I'll wait a couple hours after that to then have my, we'll call it mid-afternoon, meal. I think that one I posted the other day, which was a sweet potato, a bunch of chicken, broccoli. It's a pretty normal meal. And then I'll wait a few more hours and do dinner, and then that's it, right? So that's how I do it. But again, I think that I do have clients who get up first thing in the morning, right? So for them, again, it depends on their goals, right? If they're trying to add lean mass, trying to bulk, that's very different if someone's trying to just lose a lot of body fat, cut. Their macros might be very different, so their meals might be very different looking. But some people will just get up in the morning and drink a protein shake, an hour before they go in or on their way in, and they tend to do just fine with that. There's all these studies about when's the best time to work out. Is it morning? Is it lunch? Is it an hour and a half after lunch? Is it the evening? There's studies on how long should you wait before you wake up, before you have caffeine. In the end, like everyone's different. So that study might not apply to you. And in the end, that study might actually derail you because it doesn't work with your schedule. So some of those studies about timing, I honestly just disregard because it's hard to follow those because your life's not in a vacuum, right? Your life is a moving organism with family and friends and work, and you can't build everything around your gym time necessarily. You have to do it the other way typically. So the timing thing can be tricky. It's a lot of trial and error. And honestly, some patients and clients, every day is a different day. One day they might work out in the morning, next day the evening, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of variability. But in the end, if you're making progress and working towards it, that's the main thing that matters, honestly.
Yeah, no, that's good perspective. I think you're unique in the sense that obviously you're a full-time urologist, you have patients, but you've mentioned several times you have clients as well. So as a certified wellness coach, you have another business that you are helping people reach their fitness goals. Talk a little bit about your business and how that got started. And then part two is as you are meeting new clients or working with current clients, how are you identifying some of because you did say everybody is different with sleep, with food, with workout. Like, is there questions or how do you identify like, hey, this person can go on less sleep, but they need to work out at this time with this much food and all the different variables that come in with those three things? How do you identify those and then tailor each person's wellness plan to work for them?
Yeah, it can be tricky sometimes, but to answer your question, I do have kind of this dual role right now. I think at some point I'd like to combine it into a single role that can kind of act in all my capacity at the same time. But right now it's usually split, right? So as a urologist, I have patients. In that role, it's mostly low testosterone patients from a men's health standpoint. I also see lots of other urology conditions, obviously. But that's a very different, just strictly low testosterone. I do incorporate all the principles, but I'm not actively being their coach, their trainer, their nutrition guidance, so to speak. That's where I have this other company you mentioned, Fit and Fine, and that was founded in the last couple of years. And one of the reasons I did that is I saw over the last decade treating, let's take low testosterone patients, for example, I realized these guys have low testosterone. They're very symptomatic. I can certainly replace it and get their levels normal and get them feeling better, but only to an extent, right? They also need all of this other advice and guidance. And that's where the coaching and the training and the nutrition came into play. And I just didn't really have anywhere to send guys. And I'm like, well, I love this personally. I'm passionate about it. That's when I became a wellness coach and a trainer, and I'm working on becoming a certified nutrition coach and just keep adding these skills to to what I already love. I'm already passionate about it, and trying to incorporate it all together for busy guys, right? Busy professional men. And this gets into your role, right? I think we talked about this the other day, is they tend to forget about their finances and planning for that. They also forget about their health and planning for a future where they're not just financially healthy, but like physically healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so my goal is to help busy professionals just get in the best shape of their lives, which does require often like testosterone replacement, but it also includes training and, optimizing sleep and stress management and eating right and all those types of things. And so that's kind of how my company was formed, on that premise, I guess you would say. Something I wish I would have had 10, 15 years ago. I just got so busy that there was a time where, you're having kids and you're starting a new career, and there's all these things you have to pay attention to, that you do let your nutrition go. You do let your sleep go. You do let your health go a bit. And that's what I want to try to prevent for these guys. I want to say, hey, you need the medical management. You also need all this other stuff. It all goes hand in hand. It's all synergistic. It's just so worth it in the end. And you talk about how to like really identify what different people need. And honestly, it comes down to just assessments, right? So initial conversation, there's questionnaires, of course, and it's really finding out what they've tried in the past, what they're doing now. Often you can very quickly find out, is it mainly nutrition? Is it mainly they're not sleeping? Do they have all these medical problems they're dealing with and not getting the right answers? But a lot of it's just, good history taking, good questionnaires, good assessments up front, and then kind of tag that to what are their goals, which honestly, most of the guys that come see me, they want to, lose weight. They want to lose body fat. And obviously that's a big problem in America. So that's usually the main goal. And so a lot of the programs, although they're tailored specifically for the client, around specific macros for that person, the concepts are generically the same, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. And I think there's a great harmony in between the two things that you do. And so
yeah,
if at some point in the future you do decide to take, Fit and Fine and then what you do from a low T standpoint and combine those two, they're going to marry very well, I think.
Yeah.
Just absolutely. Because you have firsthand experience with seeing, okay, these guys are coming in with low T. I got to assume they're typically in their mid to upper 40s, early 50s is pretty common, just because of what I know about testosterone.
You'd be amazed, actually. Can I mention something about that real quick? Or
yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, so I'm actually seeing a lot of guys in their 20s. I had a guy who was 27, and he had been treated for depression for like 6 months. And turns out his testosterone was like 170. His testosterone should have been like 800, 900, 1,000. It was in the toilet. And so we got him on TRT. He feels like $1 million. He just feels so much better. Long term, he's going to be healthier. And so, you're right. It's typically guys in the 40s and 50s and beyond. But we're seeing a lot of younger guys who are walking around tired. They're stressed. They're maybe anxious. They're depressed. They go home. They don't want to change light bulbs that are out in the house for, weeks and weeks and weeks. There's just no motivation to do even those types of things. Mm-hmm. And everyone just says, oh, they're busy. And hey, this is life. But it turns out, no, actually, often they have extremely low testosterone levels. And like treating that, in addition to adding all the other stuff we talk about, it's like life-changing for them. Not just immediately, but like long-term.
Yeah. Biochemically, what's going on there? Is it just genetics that they just, as they get to a certain age, testosterone levels drop? Or is there something what happens where a 27-year-old would be having that?
Yeah, I mean, it's multifactorial. Sometimes we don't know. It could be genetic, right? Just like infertility. But some of these things are on the rise. Infertility is on the rise. Low testosterone is on the rise. I think a lot of it has to do with lifestyle factors, diet. There's so many things in our diet, even if you kind of eat somewhat healthy or well, whether it's the types of oils used in foods or the type of like actual like ingredients in the foods. Like a lot of them are very inflammatory. Inflammation is horrible for testosterone. Our diet's very high in simple sugars, simple carbs. Those are very horrible for testosterone. You factor in maybe having a couple of medical problems and then being a little overweight. That's horrible for testosterone. So I think it's a little bit of all of those things, honestly. There have been studies showing that even COVID, for example, COVID kind of attacks some of the cells in the testicles that actually make testosterone. So some of these guys are like, hey, I was fine. And then all of a sudden I had, long COVID, but turns out actually, no, they have low T, but they were fine before COVID. So is some of the long COVID actually low T from that virus destroying some of the cells in the testicles, the Leydig cells that make testosterone? So again, I think there's a lot going on, but I think by and large, a lot of it's just the lifestyle and the diet more than anything.
Yeah. And again, another way that you are well positioned to be able to create, I'll call it a clinic, but to create a space where you're helping out patients that become clients. Then, they're a low T patient that becomes a client from the health and wellness side of things. It's like, hey, we can contribute some of these factors. You are overweight. Your diet is not great. Your sleep hours, like you can take all of those assessments that you gathered from the low T space and then turn that into say, hey, now from a wellness place, from a treatment standpoint, here's what we can do. I mean, maybe we don't have to have you on TRT for quite a while. Maybe it's just adjust these types of things and work out regularly and change your diet a little bit that then creates that. So it's just funny how life works that way, that you got into medicine from a urology standpoint, and then just one of your passions turns into something that could be great. I mean, that's the same way that Grand Vision was built. We started out as Grand Vision Capital Group. We did multifamily real estate, helping physicians, invest into multifamily and help with their tax situation. Well, then we have all these physician families that are like, hey, do you know a good estate planner? Do you have a good CPA? Like I have all these different questions about my wealth plan. It's like, well, now we want to be your resource for that too. And that's where Grand Vision Family Office was born. And so it's like two different concepts, real estate and wealth management, now get married together into our company because we know both sides of it. And so I think you have a very unique space with what you do that those go together well. And that's something that you almost have two ways of treating someone. Right. The more, I don't want to call it the holistic way, but just simply eating better and
it's kind of holistic.
Yeah.
I am super excited to introduce to you the Doctors and Dollars 5-Day Financial Challenge. I'm Mike Neubauer. I'm CEO of Grand Vision Companies, and I'm the one that you see on the Wealth Wednesday and Daily Dollar episodes with Nate. So Nate and I are partnering again to do something even more exciting, which is the 5-Day Challenge. We're taking the best of all of our episodes, all of our expertise and knowledge, and we're condensing it into an impactful and purposeful 5-day presentation, 1 hour per day, for 5 days, to give you everything you need to build that foundation for your financial future. So if you're looking to gain the pieces, you want those puzzle pieces and find out how they fit in your financial plan, head over to the Doctors and Dollars website, join us on the 5-Day Challenge. We're putting it together for free, so you got nothing to lose. We look forward to seeing you on the inside.
Has working out or health and wellness always been something that was important to you? Or was it like played football in high school and you always ate right, and then it's just kind of transitioned into this? Or tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting story, I think. So I would say I was not healthy, ate junk probably until I was about a junior high, maybe. So starting to be a teenager. And I love basketball. And so I started playing basketball at school, and our coach was very motivating. I think one of the biggest, we'll call it health decisions I ever made. And he basically made a rule that, hey, if you're going to start on the team, you cannot drink any Coke, soda, pop, whatever you want to call it. If I catch you drinking it, you're not going to start. He said, you can't do it. If you want to be on my team, you drink water, that's it. And I was like, okay. So I did it. And honestly, I felt amazing. And I haven't had it, honestly, really since. And so that was one of the first times I realized, oh my goodness, what I'm drinking or potentially eating can make me feel or perform less than I really want to. And obviously that led to working out and running and training. And I just saw the benefits of that. I mean, it was kind of life-changing. And that's carried over, honestly, through college and med school and residency and even my quote-unquote adult professional life. So, I'd say that, it's been, 30 years of doing this. So, yeah, I do love it. It's a passion now, but, yeah, it started early.
Awesome for your basketball coach to be a mentor in that way.
I know, right?
Without probably intentionally being a mentor. It was probably like he just doesn't he knows what the harmful effects of that
Yeah.
soda can do, and he was just like, no, I
Yeah.
want to have optimal players.
Yeah.
I always tell the story. So after my sophomore year of college, I came back to my hometown and I worked for like the Parks and Recreation department. It was essentially mowed the city parks and the cemetery. I was
Okay.
just sat on a zero
Nice.
turn mower every day, listened to Eminem in my headphones. We had a deer get hit on the road just on the edge of town. And so we had to go out there, me and this other guy that worked there, we had to drag the deer off to the side. Well, then they want the blood that's sat on the concrete, they want it cleared off. Guess what we cleared off the blood off the concrete with? Coca-Cola and Dr. Pepper.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Because it like
Yeah.
emulsifies the blood, and then
Oh,
then
yeah.
you just spray with a hose and it clears it all out.
I mean, it is a chemical.
Whatever's in that
and
stuff is awful. Yep.
I tell clients, hey, cut out what you're drinking.
Mhm.
Coke, alcohol, whatever. It's life changing, or limited at the very least. And yeah, that's powerful. It's it's not necessarily good for you at all. So that's interesting.
It's not.
I mean,
And
you know so many people
that, yeah, I know so many people that still drink it, drink Coca-Cola all the time. But like anytime I was a bartender, then my junior and senior year of college, I was a bartender. People would come up and order like a Jack and Coke or something like that. I'm like, I would tell people like they're hammered. I'm sober because I'm working, but I'm just like, you sure you want to drink Coke? And they're like, yeah, why not? I'm like, let me tell you a story about. I told that story so many times, and then you get people. It changes. They're like, I'm never
cleaning
drinking Coca-Cola again.
Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's
life changing if you quit that. So
yeah, it is wild. I know one of your big things, and this is kind of the theme of what I wanted to ask you today, is just thinking about your overall lifestyle. I think one of your biggest beliefs is that your greatest asset is your health, your wellness, your fit. Just in the belief that like the more that you can be successful with your physical health will lead to better mental health. The more successful then you are with your mental health, the more successful you are professionally, financially, every aspect of your life.
Mm-hmm.
When was it that you kind of had that realization? I know we just talked about, you really got into health and fitness, in high school and beyond, and it's kind of carried over. But when did you find that connection point of like, man, having great physical health leads to mental health leads to success in other aspects of life?
Yeah, man, I think honestly in high school and even into college, I kept making that correlation, just by default. And so I've always been more of a glasses half full kind of guy, but obviously life happens, things happen, not everyone can be happy all the time. But it's over time definitely been an outlet for me, exercise, running, lifting. But I think just like being able to have the discipline to control what's going in and out of your body, right? It's kind of like eating, drinking, whatever it might be. There's a power in that, and kind of a simplicity even that it takes away this brain power. You don't even think about it, and you can just put your brain power into other things. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but
yeah.
I think in college especially, I started to realize the sleep aspects. And I would find that if I actually got a good night's sleep before tests and actually slept in before tests, didn't get up super early and study or stay up all night, I did far better. And I'm like, wait a minute, this actually makes sense. And so the more and more I kept doing that over time, getting sleep, eating right, working out, I just found if life hit, and it does, it'll hit everyone, you're just more resilient, right? If you're physically resilient, mentally resilient, you can deal with those things when they come, those life stressors. You can also push harder and push longer, right? So college, med school, residency, that's a very long duration, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there were people that physically just found it very challenging, or they just physically couldn't quite do it. And I think the more physically, especially in surgery, right? We'll take anyone out there who is a surgeon or wants to be a surgeon. It's different than seeing patients in the office. You're moving patients, you're standing in awkward positions, long periods of time. There's a lot of data out there about the injuries that surgeons can sustain. You stand there with your neck at weird angles for potentially hours, and while wearing a headlamp or something. And so the more physically like strong you are, or whatever, you're going to help prevent those work-related injuries that actually do happen. Or at the very least, you're going to go home and feel really good and still be able to play with your kids. You're not going to have to plop on the couch.
Yeah.
And again, it just all ties together. The more you can optimize all those things, you are just going to be a well-oiled machine, for lack of a better description.
For sure. No, and that's why, I mean, as someone who has written and set up hundreds of disability insurance policies for many professionals, including physicians, I mean, that's one of those policies you hope you never have to use, but it's good to have in case you do. And
Yeah.
I think for physicians, it's super important. They have specific policies designed just for physicians, right?
Yeah.
Medical
Oh, yeah.
only policies because of the stress factors that you just mentioned, that there is, you guys, surgeons rely so much on their body to be able to perform their work. And if any aspect of that is nullified, then it makes it really tough. And so,
Yeah.
super important to have that health there. How often are you talking to other physicians about health and wellness?
I mean, I talk to colleagues around me, like in my day-to-day circle, quite often. The gym I go to, there's physicians there. We kind of talk. Most of my clients they're not physicians. I don't actually know if there might be one actually, but yeah, most aren't physicians, but they're professionals, busy, but not physicians. It's interesting. I think a lot of times as physicians, the ones I do talk to, there's some who have been doing it forever, right? By health, wellness, exercise. They were sports back in, high school, college, whatever. But I don't see that many who are 40s and 50s that I'm around anyways, who actually seem to think they can do it in the sense of they're too busy, Well, none of us are too busy, right? I mean, it all comes down to priorities, right? So whether that's changing your clinic hours a bit to make sure you work out at lunch or in the morning, adjustments can always be made. We always control our schedule in the end. We might think we don't, but we ultimately can control those factors. But yeah, actually, I'd say physicians they're kind of tricky to chat about it. I think I think we're so busy, we're so bogged down, and time is thought to not really exist to chat about those luxuries, maybe. But you mentioned, we talked about our bodies being our greatest asset, right? Like, take care of it. And I think if you're financial planning and you can work a year or 2 or 5 or 10 if you wanted to, not that you have to, but that equates to like a lot of money, right? That return is huge. Versus if you have to stop working 5 years early because of an injury, or 5 years early because of some other problem, that's a very costly, we'll call it a mistake, right? And I think the more you can take care of your body and your mind and optimize it, again, you are going to see that return from a financial standpoint too.
Yeah, I would love to see the data and statistics behind people who have the longevity and the financial success.
Yeah.
Compared to their mental and their physical health.
Yeah.
I gotta imagine that there's a correlation there of people who are mentally and physically strong for longer periods of time can then sustain pretty significant wealth because they're maybe not even able to work longer, and whether that's longer in a day, longer in a year, longer in their overall career, but they're just able to work harder, right? They can withstand the times when it's tough, and they can be mentally strong, or all the travel and things that maybe come with that that come then physically. And so there's got to be a correlation there. You've now challenged me to go out and find some data and some statistics.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. And I think even I'm sure there's data. It'd be cool if you have it. Let me know. I think even if you're talking about retirement, so you're going to talk about the financial aspects of that. You want someone will come to you wanting to make sure, hey, when I retire, I want the money to be able to travel. I want the money to be able to, buy things for my grandkids, whatever it might be. I want to buy a vacation home. But I don't find people saying, hey, trainer, when I retire, my financial guy has me set up. I'm going to have money, but I also need to be able to physically do that, right? How many older folks who are retired have to start limiting what they do because their knees hurt, their back hurt, they had surgery, they're on home oxygen, whatever it might be. I mean, that's also part of the retirement planning concept in my mind, right?
Yeah.
The quality, not just the financial aspects, but the quality of the health that you can actually have to use the finances that you hopefully have planned for. I think it all ties in. It's so important.
Yeah, beautifully said. I mean, just imagine I mean, I've been to Italy, and I know you've been to Italy. Like, imagine
Mm-hmm.
never going and just being like, oh, when I retire, I'm
Yeah.
going to take my wife to Italy. I'm going to promise that to her.
Yeah.
15 years later, you get to retirement, and it's like, you can't go spend 10 days in Italy because your back
No.
hurts and you can't walk for long periods of time.
Yeah.
You get short of breath easily. The
Mm-hmm.
oxygen thing that you just, I mean, there can be so many factors that come into play that now something that you've been
Yeah.
wanting to do for so long,
Yeah.
you can no longer do it. And so
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
super
These
important.
things
I've
are.
honestly never thought of making sure that when you're building a wealth plan or a retirement plan for someone, that they're taking their health into consideration. We always look at age. We always look at longevity of their life, and
Mm-hmm.
but I've sat across from thousands of people talking about their wealth plan. I've never once looked at it and been like, "Hey, you're talking about living to 85 or 90. I can tell you're overweight and that you have poor eating habits. I don't know if you're going to make it that long. Like, maybe we should talk about
Mm-hmm.
exercise and diet and making sure that we're taking care of those things so
Hey.
that." I mean, I have
You're
honestly never
right.
thought of that until right now. So that's
It's
you gave me something to think about, man.
well, I'm glad. It's funny in urology, right? A lot of my patients, we see a lot of older patients, right? We do a lot
Hmm.
of prostate cancer, BPH, enlarged prostate, a lot of incontinence, things that affect older populations. So it's not uncommon for my afternoon or my day in clinic to be patients who are in their 70s, 80s, and now, honestly, a lot of 90-year-olds. And
Hmm.
frankly, a lot of them look really good. But like, yeah, I mean, it's super important. I mean, how many times do we see people even like, work their entire professional lives? They work so hard, they retire and they die like the next year, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of clients will come to me and they're like, I don't really know if I want to pay the money for a coach, or I don't know if I want to pay for a nutrition plan, or, I don't know. And I'm like, look, the return on that is going to be massive. And if you
Hmm.
don't do it, you're going to die earlier. Like the data clearly
Yeah.
shows that. You're going to have a poorer quality life between now and when you die earlier. And if you do make it, you're going to be spending a lot of money on medications and surgeries and hospital bills. That makes my fee or my whatever it is right now, like, it's kind of a no-brainer. But you have to start thinking of it as an
Yeah.
investment rather than an expense. And
Absolutely.
anyway, it's just a frame of mind, frame of reference you got to change. But
Yeah, and not even the financial part, just the time aspect of it, right?
oh
Time can
yeah,
only be spent, and you can lose time. And so, I know
yeah,
we joked about your calendar earlier, being
yeah.
super busy, but I mean, you're able to fit in all of your snacks. I'm
Hmm.
going to put that in quotes. I want to talk about that in a second. Your
Okay,
snacks that are full meals, but like,
yeah.
you have obviously structured your lifestyle. I know you have a wife, you have kids.
Hmm.
You've obviously structured your lifestyle in a way that you do make those things important within
Hmm.
your schedule. On top of
Hmm.
that, I know we talked offline. Urology is kind of a different type of workload than many physicians, right? The overall population of urologists in the country is much smaller than other specialties, and then the demand is rising and they're coming. But like,
Hmm.
talk to me about how you manage your workload as a urologist
Hmm.
with the health and the wellness business that you have, and then also like, how do you fit in your workouts and making sure that you're eating
Hmm.
correctly and making those things a priority in your busy schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, saying no is one of the best things you can do, right? I think
Great
in
answer. Yeah.
healthcare, you go through med school residency, and you can't ever say no to meetings or drug rep dinners or whatever it might be. You have to go to these; it's required.
Hmm.
But when you're done with that and you're actually in practice, you can say no. And I think even my partners, it seems like they have a hard time saying no to lunches brought in to the office and a presentation. And years ago, I just said, hey, just let people know I'm not here. I'm not here to talk. I'm not available for lunches. If they have information, I'm happy to look at it, happy to talk, remotely, email, whatever. But I'm not gonna block out an hour of my time for a meeting about something that I can go read about on my own time,
Sure.
right? I'm gonna go to the gym.
Hmm.
I'm gonna work out because that's a bigger return for me. It's a bigger return for my patients, right? If I'm healthy, I can see my patients for longer. So it's actually good for them. It's good for my family if my mental health and my energy and my wellness is like optimized. So I think saying no is actually really important. The busier you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Mark Cuban who said he never does a meeting that can be summarized in an email. And I think that's a lot of meetings over time have, at least for me, seemed like they could have been done in an email thread, a very short
Mm-hmm.
email thread at that. So I'm really reluctant to do meetings and waste time throughout my day. That's like pretty huge, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think a lot of people are used to doing that. And I think you have to really learn how to do it and be willing to do it, knowing that it's worth it. Time, like you said, can only be spent. It's valuable, so don't waste it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big one. But I think it really starts at the top, like figuring out what your priorities are, right? Priorities for me, my family, work, working out, that kind of thing. And so I think structuring things around that. My priorities aren't for me. I don't golf. So a hobby, if I get asked to go golf, I say no. I'm not going to go golf. Again,
Mm-hmm.
nothing against golf. It's just not for me. If someone says, "Hey, we've got these free tickets, you want to come," it's not that I don't have fun, but like you just can't say yes to everything that you may get asked to do, right? So I think it's just figuring out your priorities, being able to say no, and just structuring everything around those priorities is like the key. And we all have the same amount of hours, and clearly there's some people in the world doing some amazing things in the same number of hours we all have. I don't know how they do it, but they seem to do it. And so there is a way, and it's, I think, constantly learning how to do that.
Yeah.
Part of that is team too, though, right? So imagine at Grand Vision, right? You got the team. The team is really essential.
Oh, yeah.
So the same for me. I have great nurses, great manager, great partners, and so that team is really essential. Like communication with them and having that support, right? None of us are just like a one-man show or one-woman show.
Sure.
So that's a big part of at least how I'm able to do what I can do efficiently, day in, day out. That's definitely a big piece of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you definitely have your priorities in the right space, man. And I'm sure your wife and kids appreciate it to say, hey, like there's going to be times when I can't be available, when I have to be gone, doing certain things. But as long as, family and fitness, I think is the best way you could put it. You need to get that on a tattoo.
Family and fitness. There you go.
On your shoulder.
Yeah.
There you go.
One on each shoulder.
As long as you're prioritizing those. Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway I got from what you just said, because I agree. I think saying no to certain things is good. Everyone has that FOMO, right? Just the fear of missing out on the concert or the round of golf or the, whatever it may be. People have that FOMO. And I think if you can just overcome that to say, hey, I have my priorities. Those things come first. Once those are satisfied, if I still have some time, then I'll go do some other things that are fun. But I think it's very hard for people. I'm guilty of that sometimes too, where it's like there's something, especially if it's something I've been wanting to do for a while, and all of a sudden the opportunity presents itself, but it conflicts with, something that me and my family are doing, or another priority that I had that is truly a bigger priority. But it's like, oh man, I've been wanting to do this forever, and having to say no to that hurts. But like a week later, you forget all about it, and so it's like
exactly.
If you have several weeks where a week later you're forgetting all about it, that compounds over time, and eventually it's like, okay, I prioritize the right things. I haven't really missed out on much.
Yeah,
and I'm healthier. I'm more successful in my career. My family still wants me around. Like all of those types of things are much more important. And it sounds like you got a good head on your shoulders in that space.
I hope so. Right. I think it's a challenge. It takes intentionality, not just intentions, but like intentionality. And I think knowing their seasons, right? So my kids are little, yours are little. I think knowing that's not always going to be the case, right? So what I do today might be very different from what I do in 5 or 10 years, right? And there's seasons to life. And so I think knowing, hey, for right now, this is my season. I'm going to buckle down and kind of prioritize these things and work my schedule on that. But 10 years, it might be very different. So I think, knowing that it's just what you do today is not what you have to do forever, but being flexible and being open to adjusting things based, again, on your priorities at the top is kind of the key. So,
gotcha. All right, last thing I want to touch with you on. I've been alluding to it through our conversation, and you knew I was going to bring it up as soon as you posted it on LinkedIn. So anybody watching, go out to David's LinkedIn. Talk to me about your snacks that are meals, man. Like when I think of a snack, I'll go grab like a piece of beef jerky or something like that. Just something really quick that just kind of gets some flavor in your mouth but doesn't have a lot of calories. you're eating entire Thanksgiving meals. It feels like what?
Yeah,
Talk to me about what's the physiology behind that? Like, why is that? And then how do you create the time to not only prepare those meals, but then like it feels like you're eating them every few hours. So there's a lot that goes into that. Talk me through your snacks.
Yeah, I mean, it is every few hours, but I train hard and work out hard, and my own trainer, I have my own personal trainer, has me on pretty high protein, like guidelines and carbs and fat stuff. So it's pretty mapped out. But as far as preparing, I make it pretty easy, honestly. So it may look complicated, and I don't prep meals for the whole week on like one day on Sunday. I don't spend hours doing that. But each night, if like, for example, we're making dinner tonight, we'll make extra chicken, extra potatoes, whatever, enough to have for the next day. You're doing the work anyway, just add a little bit. It doesn't add much extra time, and then you're set. So that's kind of the key is, again, when you're doing something, if you're not planning for the next day, then you're not going to think about it. So you gotta know what your plan is. You got to automate some of those things and then just make them kind of easy, right? Just integrate them to what you're doing. So that way my wife's not upset that I'm like spending hours, my own time, like meal prepping for the week while they're out having fun, right? I don't do that. Not that that's necessarily wrong if someone does do that, but it just doesn't work for our life. So you got to integrate it into the day to day. But yeah, the physiology, I mean, is just fuel, right? Food's fuel. Food's fuel for me. It's funny you mentioned the beef jerky. I was in Costco a couple weeks ago in line. The guy behind me said, "Hey, honey, check out that beef jerky. Let me know the macros on that." She read them off, and he said, those aren't real good. He said, put them back. He didn't want them. So anyway, but I used to do snacks, so I'd have meals. But most of us, especially if we work out or train or lift or whatever it might be, like it's hard to get the macros you really need. Let's say protein, for example, in 3 meals, like maybe 4. But I mean, like I eat 250 grams of protein a day. Like to do that in 3 meals, I don't know if I can absorb all that.
80 grams of protein per meal. That's a lot.
Yeah, that'd be too much, right? So when I divide up into 5 meals, that's pretty easy to do, right? So that's much more manageable. So that's one of the reasons is just getting the macros in. But what I eat is I process it fairly fast, right? So it's lean meat, right? So if I ate that plate you saw was lean grilled chicken breast, a sweet potato, and broccoli. I mean, it had like 300 calories. I mean, that's got to be less than like a bag of Doritos and a Mountain Dew, right? So
for sure,
and it's high quality, so I'm going to process that much faster than Doritos and a Mountain Dew. So the transit time in my intestine, and my gut, stomach, the type of food I eat, it's usually pretty fast. But if your snack is chocolate bar or something higher fat, higher processed, like it's just going to sit there. It can be full. And so that's a big difference there is the types of foods you eat dictate how hungry you might be in a few hours. And so that's part of it too. But that's kind of the basics.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I work out pretty hard in the morning, and then that's why my breakfast, I think, is so satisfying because it's usually a big breakfast of 3 or 4 eggs, sausage or bacon, sometimes a piece of toast. But it's like I make sure I eat a lot, but that's just because an hour after a workout, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry. Like, put all the food in my mouth. So I think it's really good to split that out.
Yeah, I think snacks to get snack food right. Most snacks are, you look at the back, it's like 20 to 30 ingredients. So I try to keep most of my food really simple. Like chicken, it's like chicken. It's like one ingredient. Unless you go fast food chicken, then it is 20 ingredients. So I don't do that. I have my own chicken. I make it home. Sweet potatoes, one ingredient, right? Now, if you got a bag of sweet potato chips, that's 20 ingredients. So like snacks or snack food, like we don't do best eating snack food. We do best eating food, like meals. So that's, I guess, another way to approach it too, is I used to do that. I ate crackers and like you said, beef jerky for a snack or something. But, as I've come along over my like experience in training, I realized I need food. I need fuel. I need 1-2 ingredient, high quality, like, macronutrients, and just off I go. So that's just the way I look at it too.
Love that. Final question that I give to everyone. What does the next 5 years look like for Dave Hall?
Man, next 5 years, busy probably in the urology space. I think a dream of mine is to expand what we were just talking about a little bit earlier. Is currently I'm in this dual role, right? I'm a urologist. I treat low T. I'm also a trainer, wellness coach, soon to be nutrition coach, and I guide people in those arenas. But I can't currently mix the two. So I think the next 5 years is me doing that and being more of a comprehensive guy that focuses on all things men's health. And that would even get into things like thyroid optimization or, different sports nutrition and just taking it to that next level. At least professionally, I think that's the next 5 year plan for me. And just to keep learning and that kind of thing. I think the other next 5 years of my life can be a lot of family time and watching my kids grow up, just make sure I don't miss any time there because it's going fast, right? And just, I think, trying to keep my priorities straight and stay as healthy as I can, and just keep doing the best job I can.
Love it. Sounds like you're locked in, man. I gotta imagine that it's only going to get better for you. So, I know you're busy. I appreciate you taking some time out to talk with me today, and I look forward to when our paths cross again in the future.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Thanks again for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take it easy.
Yeah, you too.